Welcome to the Lost Coast podcast. Today we have another special guest with us, Gabby Wnek. And she's a licensed social worker, plus she's a burnout and anxiety coach. So if you're looking for some little help in those areas, she's going to be the one you want to talk to. So let's pay attention, see what she has to say today. Gabby, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so Gabby, you're a social worker and anxiety and burnout coach.
Mhm.
So this probably falls right in line with your social work. So tell us a little bit about how you come to, get involved in outside from just the social work and into this burnout and anxiety coaching.
Yeah, I went to school for psychology and social work, and then I got my clinical licensure after working in community mental health. So really, clients that have like really big diagnoses, really difficult diagnoses. And so that's kind of where my burnout story really started. In college, I also developed chronic pelvic pain. So I was like in so much pain, so much anxiety. And then I started working in community mental health. So that's where some of that burnout cycles really, because I've had cycles of this started. And so I would work for a little bit, the pain would get too high, and then I would need to leave my job because I couldn't handle pain, anxiety, and other people's trauma. So that cycle kind of continued until 2 years ago at work, where again, I was like trying to figure out what was going on with me and my body. And then I finally did. It's like mind body pain. It's neuroplastic pain. So it's pain that comes from the nervous system and the brain versus anything being wrong structurally. And so then, as I've continued to work on that, it's still like really big things. And along with seeing clients, right, it got to a point where I had a client that sat in front of me. And this was a regular client that I would see every week, right? And all of a sudden I just looked at him and went, I really don't care what you're talking about. You could leave. Like, I really don't care. And I went, Gabby, like, this is not okay. Like that we cannot be in the room right now. Like this is dangerous. If I am like fully apathetic to what my client is saying, which is not my job, right? My job is to help people.
Okay.
I knew that I had a bigger issue on my hands, and it wasn't just, oh, like there's some compassion fatigue, like I need to take some time off. Like this was serious. And I went to my director and I told her that I need to take that day off. And I think I took a couple of days off after, but I knew that a vacation even or a couple of days wouldn't be enough to really fix this, really to get myself back to where I needed to be. And it really wasn't until even later the next year, because this happened around November, where I just got in the cycle of like taking Klonopin every night, because I would come home and my pain would probably be like a 9 or a 10 because I would see 8 clients in a row, or 8 clients that day. And I barely ate. I barely went to the bathroom because you're back to back to back, right? And essentially I was self-abandoning myself without really knowing in that moment or in those moments. And after coming home and taking Klonopin for months, I mean, it was the only thing that helped me sleep at the end of the day because the pain was so bad. And I became a zombie. Like, quite literally, the medication like numbed me out. And after months, I went, what am I doing? Like, this is not okay. Like, I cannot keep sacrificing my physical and mental health for this job. Like, there's got to be a better way for me to help people. And the coach that I was working with, she said, Gabby, I know you were going to quit your job the moment we started working together. And I was like, oh, okay. She goes, you just weren't ready. You weren't ready to hear it. You needed to experience it in your body in order to get to that point. And so I did. I quit my job because I could. And I, have the means to, and I'm still living with my parents. So I could, right? I had that luxury of being able to do that. And I zeroed in and I did so much healing work on my pain, on my nervous system. And I'm like happy to report that I'm like 90% better. And that's where I found coaching. That's where I found a therapist who was teaching therapists how to become coaches. And I was like, oh my gosh, like there is a better way in order to continue to see clients and make an impact in the world without having to see 25 to 30 clients a week. or more, depending on the week, right? So that's kind of really my shortened version of my burnout story. And I just don't want people to ever get to that point because it was really, really difficult.
Oh, I couldn't imagine. Social work in itself, we all know, is a challenging job because it's not like you get to talk to the happiest people in the world, right? Everything is an
Right.
issue. And rightfully so in most of those situations. So you're, you, I can imagine struggling trying to help others when you just know inside you're just compressing what's going on inside you, and then it just starts to blow up and leak out, and oh yeah,
Exactly. And that's what happened, right? My body was giving me signals of like, hi, I need attention, help me.
yeah,
Right. But when you're seeing that many clients a week, it's hard because you don't even have time to take care of yourself. And you come home at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. The last thing you want to do is like meditate or go for a walk or exercise or any of that. Like, you're like, I'm going to bed, right?
yep,
And so, I had a colleague that saw 40 clients a week. And then he came to me and he said, I'm starting to get back pain. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense that you're starting to get back pain, right? Like this is that energy has to come out somehow. And for a lot of people, it comes out in pain or anxiety or migraines or you name it. It's just your body being like, I need attention. I need you to help me. Right. And so, I've had to do a lot of work with myself of like when I started therapy again and doing coaching of telling my body, like, I will never allow us to get to that point again because my body got scared. Right. And being able to talk to that part of me and go, like, I love you too much to be able to get to that point again.
yeah. It's good that you recognize the signs, and what's even better is that I'm sure there's plenty of people listening right now that are already going, boy, I think I have this issue too.
Yeah.
I know I am kind of already thinking, yeah, okay. Especially start mentioning back pain and all that kind of stuff. It's like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's kind of something that you need to have click in your head and go, you know what? Maybe we should take a step back here and look at what the issue is and why my body's telling me this.
Exactly.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's so happy that you've made the change, you made the switch now, and now you're trying to help other people see it so everybody can live a more fulfilling life.
Exactly. Yeah, because I think one of the hallmarks of burnout is that like physical, emotional, mental exhaustion, where it's like, I can't do this anymore. Like, what's the point? Right. And I think if we can get people to not get to that point, right? And just start to recognize these signs earlier, like that's just going to be so much helpful for people. Cause I just never want people to get to the point where, they do their job and they say, yeah, I don't care. That moment was just like such an aha moment when I looked at my client and I went, I don't care. And I'm like, I that's never what you want to think as a therapist or someone in the helping profession, right? So how do we get people to recognize this stuff earlier?
Yeah. It just goes to show that even if when you're in the profession, you can have the same issues of the profession of people you're trying to help.
It,
It's
yeah.
it's pretty much that simple. None of us are immune to anything, no matter how much training or whatever we have. But in that note, so what's kind of like, what do you think are one of the first? Probably not one sign is heavier than the other. But what is a major sign where people can start to have that burnout feeling or the
Hmm.
anxiety or whatever? Something for them to kind of look for so they can gauge where they're at.
I think a lot of it is run down. Like if we're talking about like that exhaustion, I think one step before that is just starting to kind of feel run down and being like, oh, like, do I really want to go to work tomorrow? Do I really want to continue? Like, do I, those kind of things is like, oh, it's that like, I don't want to, right? Because that's our sign that something's off, right? Whether we're working too much or there's not enough boundaries in place or maybe our job isn't fulfilling, right? Like on a purpose level, like sometimes we do a job because we have to, not because necessarily we want to. My dad came here from Poland with 50 bucks in a suitcase and he always told me, I want you to go to work because you want to. I go to work because I have to because I have a family to take care of,
Right.
right? And I think a lot of burnout is we do a job that we hate or we don't like. And so that's where that like, oh, that like I really don't want to go to work tomorrow. Like that's going to be one of your first signs of burnout, that something isn't aligned for you.
Yeah, so just start feeling tired or resentful of the job is kind of something.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Hmm.
well, that's good information. Um, Tough to say, but that's probably the majority of us
Yeah.
out here in the workplace, really. I mean, how many
Mhm.
people really go out and follow their dream job, and take
Right.
time to get it? And that's kind of in my industry in the financial piece. I try to show people, okay, this is the job you have, this is what's paying the bills. That's fine. We
Hmm.
need to find a second job, hobby that you enjoy doing that can actually service as an income too, and maybe grow it to be your
Right.
main source of income. You know,
Hmm.
it,
Exactly.
we're not gonna, some things we can't change overnight. We know we're just in those
Oh,
situations, but with a little
right.
work, we can make that happen. And that's kind of what you're doing for people, getting them just to understand their bodies, understand what's
Mhm.
going on so they can have a better lifestyle and get.
Exactly.
So give
Yeah.
us a little bit of that information. Give us a little bit of, you know, information as in, somebody comes to you and they say, Gabby, I need your help. What's
Hmm.
kind of the process they're going to go through?
Yeah. My first thing with clients is like an inventory, right? Like, where do we feel stuck? Where do we feel burnt out? Is it our careers and our jobs? Is it our relationships, family, romantic? Is it finances? Is it parenting? Like, what are these areas that we feel stuck in and how do we want them to change? Right? Like, if I can give you a magic pill, what would be different? Right? And then we start with options. Like our nervous system loves options, right? Because when we feel burnt out, we feel stuck. It's just like, I have to do this forever. There's only one option. Like for me, when I was burnt out, like I had to keep doing therapy because in that moment, my brain was like, this is it. Like there's no other option. Right. And as soon as I started giving myself options, there was relief of like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. Not saying that every option is feasible for people, right? But it's again this notion of options that gives our brain space of like, huh, like I can do this or this or this, right? So that's really important, right? And then we figure out like what boundaries do we need to put in, like how do we start to do the changes or do whatever the option is that is going to be best for each person. And then really it's about I just teach regulating the nervous system. So I like to give clients like their own formula. So I like to teach a lot of different skills because what works for me is going to be different than what works for you and anyone else, right? And so that could be meditation, breath work, exercise, all these different kind of modalities coming into the body, right? What areas of your body feel better and worse, and all these different somatic exercises so that clients can create their own formula so they can use these skills for forever, really, because that's what it is. Because we can't get rid of stress in our life because life, it's always going to bring something, right? And so if we have the tools to be like, okay, in this moment, I feel anxious, I need to use this. In this moment, I feel irritable or angry, I need to use this, right? Like it's this moment by moment awareness of what your body needs. And it's going to be different because you're going to feel different during different moments of your life, right? And so it's creating that I like to call it a formula for skills that that work for you and how do you incorporate them into your life. And there's also some compassion work as well and some parts work like perfectionism and overachieving and people pleasing and things like that. But that's kind of the foundation of the program.
So is it a program? Is it a continuous, is there checkups? How's I mean, we just went over what you're doing in the program there,
Yeah.
but is it okay, this is going to take 6 months, years, or is this going to be like, okay, we're going to meet 1 month forever until,
Hmm.
to infinity, or,
Yeah.
maybe,
It's a
maybe just 5 years, who knows, but
Yeah, it's a 3-month program and clients can sign up for the 3 months. And if they need to continue, they can. Because I know with burnout and anxiety, it can take a little bit of time, right? This isn't, like I said, I wish I had a magic pill, but I don't, right? For clients. So yeah, it's a 3-month program. And then, we'll do as much work as we can. And then, clients can continue if they would like. I always tell clients, I'm like, the idea is even therapy clients too. I'm like, I don't want to see you in a couple of years. Like I want to be able to give you the skills and I want you to be able to live your life, right? I think sometimes therapy long term or coaching long term can be helpful. And I want to create people, or like give people to be self-sufficient. Like I want to give them the tools so that they can do these things on their own, right? Because it feels good to be able to be like, I got this, you know what I mean? Like I can do this for myself. Not saying that people will never need support ever again in their life because things happen, but I just want to make sure that people have the skills to be able to regulate on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's just say somebody goes in and they do this 3 months course with you, right? And they're
Mhm.
looking good. They're good. They got some stuff figured out,
Yeah.
But I mean, down the road here, something's going to happen. I mean, like you just said, something's going to happen down the road where it's
Hmm.
either going to trigger something else is
Yeah.
going to happen to them. Is there a way to get like, well, I need to talk to Gabby again. I need a short refresher.
Hmm.
I don't need 3 months, but I need a short refresher. Is that's I'm sure possible in some aspects, right?
Yeah, totally. There's also I think eventually in my business I'll do like either like a VIP day or like, where it'd be like a couple of hours with me, like you said, that kind of refresher, right? Where, I would love to one day do like retreats and things like that. I think would be really cool as well. So like a day or two. So yeah, there's definitely possibilities as well to kind of do like a little tune up, right?
Yeah.
If you need a little bit of like a refresher.
Yeah, I think those are so important because we even do that in the financial side that I'm on. We may get
Yeah,
somebody's full plan together. As long as they stay with that plan, they're going to be perfectly fine, right?
right.
But hiccups happen in life.
Totally.
And so that something could happen family wise, financial wise, anything wise, mental wise, that just changes their dynamics. And so we need to be able to go to that roadmap and make some detours and make adjustments so we still get to our end destination. And it's nice to see that you have that in your program, that you have the availability for those check-ins, checkups, to
Yeah.
however you want to word them or put them
Hmm.
together. But that's great. So do you have an example for us of a current or past client that you've helped? I mean, this is always, I think, figured one of the best ways when we're
Yeah.
discussing these kind of things to get the message out of the actual proof in the pudding, kind of say.
Hmm. Yeah, I had a client that she was a nurse and she was so burnt out. This was during COVID too. So that we have COVID as an added stressor, right?
Yeah.
She was a nurse in a hospital and she's like, I cannot work in the hospital anymore. And I said, okay. So again, what are our options? You can stay at the hospital, you can quit the hospital and go to a different place. You can, let's see, is there anything other than a nurse that you want to be? I think she was talking about potentially like nutrition or like a dietitian or things like that. So I was like, okay, going back to school is another option, right? So we worked on all these different options and she chose what she thought was in her best interest, but for her nervous system. What she could do was she quit the hospital and she found a place where she was a nurse at like an outpatient surgical center. And for her, that was a better option because just the hours were more flexible. The people that she worked with were better, right? So like just the environment was better. And then once she was able to switch, that's where we really tackled the anxiety, right? And we really worked on what are ways that you can regulate and what are ways that you can over time kind of calm the nervous system down. And she graduated, she stopped services and everything and she's doing really well right now. So again, some people it's important to, get out of a bad relationship or, quit your job. I had another client, she switched departments at her job. Right. So sometimes it doesn't have to be like a drastic, like I quit, right? Because it's not feasible for everyone to just to quit their jobs financially, emotionally. And sometimes for our nervous system, a big change is actually going to be more activating than a smaller change, right? And so she switched departments. She had her boss was really, really toxic and pretty terrible. So she, in the same company, just switched to a different department and she was so much happier, right? She had a boss that was very, helpful and she got more training. She didn't get any training in her last department. And so again, sometimes it's that, and sometimes it's quitting your job, and sometimes it's putting up boundaries like, hey, I need to work less hours. I can't take on as many projects. Like it's so bio individual in that sense that everyone has a different situation. And so it really just depends on like what's going on in a person's life. It's hard to give like a prescription, quote unquote, to what to do. But those are some examples that I've had with clients.
Well, that's pretty extreme. One's just changing departments in the same company makes
Yeah,
a huge difference, and the other one quits her job, goes in kind of basic the same profession, but
right.
a whole different atmosphere. And I guess that's where I'm going with it. Atmosphere, just change of atmosphere sometimes is a healthy situation.
Totally. Yeah.
It's like that's why we go on vacation, right? Go someplace else that we've never been, spend some time with. I don't know if you live next to the ocean, I guess you go to the desert or something. If you're in the desert, you go to the ocean. I don't know, but it's a change of atmosphere and give you a whole different outlook on life. And
Yeah. And
it's
it's so true because like, our body reacts to energy. And so like if we're in an environment that is toxic or not good for us or whatever, like your body's going to feel that and it's going to react to that. And so if we can give someone a better working environment, that is going to dramatically shift. Like it's like when you sit next to someone and they're like really, really sad, your body's going to feel that. If you sit next to someone who's really, really anxious, your body's going to tense up because you're feeling their energy,
oh yeah, yeah,
right? So it's kind of the same concept. Like your body will react to safety and it's also going to react to tension and threat because that's its job.
right. So yeah, when you think about that, somebody over here is tense. You're gonna get that energy. You're gonna start feeling tense. And how do you get rid of tension? Because that's just the energy that's in the room.
Mhm.
Not removing yourself. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like there's some like more energetic work that you can do, like, like visualization, right? Where you kind of like visualize like a force field around you, or like I like to tell clients like to put on the rubber raincoat because rubber can't absorb water. So like letting things kind of slide right off of you. Um, there's those kinds of things. And sometimes you just can't, right? Because like sometimes that energy is just gonna come in. And so, that's where other practices come into play to like release some of that energy, like movement, like shaking, right? Can like release certain stuck energy. Walking, exercising is like a big one.
Yeah.
So just things like that to counteract some of that energy that you're, because again, you can't not absorb all of it either. Even as like a therapist, for example, or a coach, like I can do all the things and I'm still going to take on some people's energy because I'm human. I'm not, an alien or, some other creature that is like impermeable, right? And so that's why those skills are really important to have to counteract some of that energy.
Yeah, movement. I couldn't agree more about the movement piece because I've been to a couple of Tony Robbins events. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and that guy makes you get up and move all the time to keep everything
Yep,
going and going and kind of keeping your
exactly.
mind going. Yeah, they don't hardly let you sit down. Every time somebody else is talking, they want you to get up and jump up and down and hoop and holler.
Mm-hmm.
You know, get those feelings back of being intensified on what's going on at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and it brings you back to the moment. Like it brings you back here because this is the only moment that we have, right? And so even just like getting up and taking a short walk, like up and down the hallway. It doesn't have to be a lot, right? I think people are like, "Oh, I have to like do a 40-minute workout." No, take a lap around the building, go up and down some stairs, right? Like it doesn't have to be this huge amount of exercise, but any kind of stretching, like even, taking some like stretches in your chair can be helpful, right? Because we are sitting a lot, so that's another thing too.
Yep. Yep. All right. Well, Gabby, this has been great. What is there any other advice you'd like to tell our listeners today before we bring it to a close?
One of the things that really helped me on my journey was just knowing that like nothing stays the same, right? Things can change, and nothing in our life is ever permanent. Nothing. Our feelings, our emotions, our sensations, like things always pass. And I think that's really helpful, especially when you're in such maybe a dark place or a darker place. It feels like it's never going to end. It does. It really does. And then one of my favorite quotes from Courtney C. Stevens is nothing changes if nothing changes,
Yeah.
right? Like
Great.
you have to do something different in order for things to be different, right? And so it's like the definition of insanity. You can't, keep doing the same thing and wanting a different result. It's just not going to happen. And so with hard work and dedication, things can get better for people.
Well, that's great advice. I love that. Nothing changes if nothing changes. I mean, that's great. I
Right.
mean, that's when you think about it, that's pretty deep. And
It is.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Abby, this was great. I'm sure our listeners got everything out of it. I know I did. I appreciate you coming on the show today and putting out your insight. And with that being said, this is the Lost Coast Podcast, and we are bringing this to a close, and we will see you all next time. Thank you so much, and goodbye.